Hi, welcome again to another episode of the Sales Mindset Coach. I'm Chris and I'm here with Steve.
I thought you were going to say, he's Chris and I'm Steve then, but hello everybody.
I think the best thing about these Facebook videos, well, we're going across LinkedIn, YouTube and Twitter, but the best thing about these videos is just sometimes how random they are. So today we're talking about being an industry leader. What makes you and why you should be a leader? So actually, let's start with that question.
Yeah.
Why should you be a leader in your industry?
Yeah. If everybody wants to be one as well, right? Why do you want to do it? And is it important? Does it add value? So yeah, when I think about this question about becoming an industry leading voice, an authority, I sort of say to myself, what value does it bring? I think the first thing to be clear about is, do you want to do it? Do you actually want to be known as somebody that is above the competition from a knowledge, an authority, a value add perspective? Are you comfortable being part of a very competitive middle ground? Because we won't talk about the third category, which is not succeeding, but the point is, becoming a leading voice and authority is the bit that differentiates you in a crowded marketplace from your competitors.
Do you think there is an element of sales success from being a leading voice?
Well, yeah. I mean, do I believe it? Yes, I do. I mean, when I look at the activity that I see around at networking events, when I see the success around public speaking events, these are all populated by people who have positioned themselves as leaders in their field. And whilst those networking events and public speaking events aren't necessarily the cash kings, they are the softer marketing to why would I bring this industry leader in? One of the things that people tend to try to follow is to write a book. It positions you as an industry leader, and it's a great lead magnet, right? So I do think there is a correlation.
So have you got to be 100% committed to this? Has someone got to go, right, I'm going to be an industry leader, a leading voice, I'm going to set out, I'm going to do this? Or can they start thinking, I'll give it a go and see how far I get?
Yeah. So I think that one comes about, you've got to have, in my view, right, and so this is a personal perspective, it's got to come from a very pure place, right? It can't be, I'm doing this just to cash in. Yeah, it's got to be driven by a purpose, in my view. Those of you that have seen some of my stuff know that I'm really passionate about three things in sales. One is about raising the standards of sales everywhere, the Elevate Everywhere hashtag. The second one is supporting smaller businesses with their sales mindset, hence this conversation. And the third one is about creating more gender balance in the imbalance there is in sales. Sales. And those three things, have evolved over time, but they are absolutely my sort of critical mission. And therefore, when I talk or when I attend networks, I don't start talking about other things.
Okay, so even though you deal in sales mindset, you still have a mission, you still know what you're going to be, a leading voice in, breaking that down. Because I guess sales can be a very big environment, can't it? And if you don't know what you want to talk about, you can easily get mixed up. And I suppose that comes down to communicating clearly, knowing what you want to talk about. I mentioned at the beginning of this Facebook Live, this video, that sometimes it can go wrong. Sometimes we don't, we end up talking over each other, or it can feel a bit random. But to be a leading voice, do you have to know exactly what you want to say?
Well, I think you've got to be able to know where you're going, and you've got to be able to communicate it clearly. Do you have to have all the answers? Absolutely not, right? Because that's not an industry leading voice, that's an industry big head.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
That's an industry know-all. I think there's this element that you are there prepared to learn and actually some vulnerability in sales is not a bad attribute, right? I don't know everything. But this piece about does the fact that I'm clear about my purpose in sales help me become more successful? Well, from a perspective of my business positioning, yes. But from the perspective of me as a person, absolutely yes. So the combination of being happy at work, being happy in my own mindset, actually is the bit where it pays off.
Yeah. So if you've got a few people out there thinking, oh, I'd love to be a leading voice, I'm just a bit meek or a bit mild, you know, how can they make that jump? Yeah. How can they give themselves that confidence?
Well, you can't deny the people that do public speaking, as an example, they carry over a confidence that I often sit there and go, oh wow, that's amazing.
But you often hear them say, you know, 10 years ago I wouldn't get up on stage.
Yeah.
You know, is there a confidence, breeds confidence element?
Well, and without doubt there is. I mean, so I always say, and there's a challenge out there, push yourself outside your comfort zone, right? I often post 1 or 3 things to develop this week, and one is self-development. Get out there and talk and do it, because the more you do it, the more you bring the self-reflection back in, the more you become interesting to be around because you're interested in something, and that's quite engaging. So you don't have to be the Simon Sinek that can stand there and captivate 2,000 people around the word why. And if you haven't seen that, do watch that video. It's awesome. Maybe if we can do this post or pre, we can put a link in to that.
Yeah, we can put a link in. That's fine.
Because that's really worth looking at. But actually, just being able to talk to a few people in such a captivating way is the bit that is rewarding, right? You're not going to stand there on that stage. It is something you can do.
So let's see who out there believes they're a leading voice, because you don't have to be a international leading voice, do you? No. You can be a leading voice in your community. Yeah. You can be a leading voice in your group of friends, in your client base.
It's a great clarification.
Yeah, because you don't have to be. So like for me working in social media, you know, I class myself as a leading voice. But I know I'm no Gary Vee.
yeah.
I'm not that big, and I suppose there's some salespeople out there that don't consider themselves Grant Cardone, you know. Yeah. But you are a leading voice in the group of friends or the environment that you network or live in.
Yeah, and you were going to ask a question of the group.
Yeah, so I did. Yeah, I kind of got into that. So give us a thumbs up or write in the comments if you are or consider yourself a leading voice. If you don't, then put something in the comments to start being a leading voice. Yeah. Let's hear from you. Yeah. If you're a bit held back and you'd love to be a leading voice, tell us what you do. You know, tell us what's special about you and put that in there. I think this is an opportunity actually to say who you are and what you do again.
Yeah.
And we don't do this very much in the group.
No, we don't.
So take this. So give us a thumbs up if you're a leading voice, and if you're not and you want to be, then just tell us who you are and what you do. An opportunity to be a leading voice.
And just to build on that, I think it's important. When you come over to the salesgrowthclub.com, we have the opportunity to talk a little bit more about your sales strategy.
Yeah.
And part of your sales strategy could be, you know, where are the segments and sectors that I would benefit from a higher profile? And then how do I go about building that into my sales strategy and my sales plan? Because this talk of a leading voice is great, but let's tie it back to the business plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it has a grounding.
I think I was getting a bit carried away there. I like to think of myself as a leading voice, but sometimes, I don't put it into the sales.
Yeah.
I don't tie it in.
Yeah. And that's the pixie dust.
You have to, haven't you? You've got to have that end game of driving sales.
Yeah.
I suppose you are that marketing tool, aren't you?
I mean, it's a great marketing tool, isn't it? I mean, I very much enjoy listening to people who I learn from, right? And it's not, and sometimes it's just a reminder, a re-emphasis, a reframe of something I've heard before, but because they are who they are, I'm interested.
Yeah. How long does this take? How long does it take for them to be a leading voice?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I mean, it's an interesting, I don't really think about that, but I'm going to have to because you've asked me a question. I know some of the social media platforms give people categories of influence, right?
Yeah.
If you have so many followers or so much of this, you become a level of influence. Now, so
LinkedIn do it with their SSI.
LinkedIn do it with their SSI.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it definitely it must mean something, right? Although stats are vanity and something else I can't remember the saying, but there is a point that it must have an influence. It must correlate back to your business results. But not everybody is going to be, as you mentioned earlier, this Gary Vee, because he's been able to invest quite a lot of dollars.
Yeah.
And quite a lot of time.
A bit of it does come down to money, doesn't it? The more money you've got to invest in the advertising and getting that content right, the quicker you're going to grow. Yeah,
it is. But I think it's about your frame, right? So if you are a manufacturer and you are part of a manufacturing association, there is nothing wrong with being the leading voice in that association, to your point earlier, right? So, but does it take time? Do you need to have grey hair to be a leading voice? Absolutely not. Many of the people that I really respect are able to just articulate what they believe, what they stand for, with clarity, with conviction, with insight, because they are committed to that cause and they're continually developing themselves and learning. It doesn't happen overnight, right? I mean, you've mentioned LinkedIn. People talk about how many followers they have. Does that mean they're an influence?
Well, a lot of people buy followers these days, so sometimes the number of followers doesn't actually mean who you are. It's the amount of, for me, influencing and being a leading voice is the amount of influence you have on someone.
Yeah.
Helping someone.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. So in some sort of social term, that might be called reach or engagement, whatever it is. In a more traditional world, you do that in the room.
Yeah.
All right. But actually, it is about the people you help, and it's about that. But you don't get invited to be that person if you don't have your mission clear, if you don't communicate what you want absolutely clearly, and actually you're not prepared to put yourself out there and say it.
And I suppose realise that it takes a bit of time.
And it takes time.
Because if you're going to rush it, without the proper funding, let's say, then you're going to speak out of turn, or you're not going to say the right stuff. You need to make sure that, as you said, you understand what you're saying.
But only just to pick up on one point there, don't be frightened to speak out of turn if you believe it, right?
Yeah, of course.
And why does this all matter? This all matters because it helps build your brand, it helps make your marketing more impactful, and that in turn, if you're selling correctly, will help your sales.
Brilliant. So that's pretty much it for this week. So a very quick overview on how to be a leading voice. So we're coming back next week, and next week we're changing. We're going to be moving on from sales in business strategy, in people's business strategy. I'm going to be moving on to growth management.
Good.
So how to set meaningful sales targets.
That's a good one.
And be able to forecast effectively. Now, we spoke about this a few weeks ago, and there was a lot of people asking for forecasting templates. So I think next week, talking about setting targets and forecasting is going to be really important for a lot of people. Yeah. So we're going to be back here next Wednesday at 2 p.m. With another Facebook Live to talk about growth management. Talk about that.
Very good.
Excellent.
See you
Thank you
then.
very much, and see you later.